everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Hi, everybody. It's not me hosting this show today. No. As a matter of fact, it's Michael Shure. Let's welcome him on in.
Hello, everybody. Good to be on the Mark Thompson Show. Kim, great to be with you. Albert, great to be with you. But mostly great to be with everybody in the Mark Thompson fam that watches and comments and participates. A lot happening. I mean, that's a sort of a rote way to start a show. There's always, it seems, a lot happening, but we have some interesting stories today, from George Santos to a judge being arrested, to Trump maybe lying about China, Trump maybe lying about a deal in Ukraine, which I just inserted in here, but is not part of our rundown, but we'll talk about it. And then, of course, the NFL draft, 48 seconds of sports. We have Michael Snyder later, and I get to take everyone to Florida, which I enjoy doing. I'm usually in the green room for that, waiting to come on for our political session, which we will do with Jim Avila today as well. So good to be here. Happy April 25th, and let's get right to it. Why don't we? Kim, there's some interesting stories today, and I think what we talked about, well, it's hard to decide sometimes what the the band sometimes just plays too long. It's hard to decide what we want to start with sometimes. But I think today, because you don't see it a lot, there is there's a judge who's been arrested. I don't even know how to say that, right? A judge in Milwaukee, Wisconsin judge named Hannah Dugan, was arrested, boasted about by Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General and the Director of CIA in reverse order there, of the FBI in reverse order. So Hannah Dugan was charged with 2 felonies for her role in helping an undocumented immigrant, who Kash Patel referred to in his post as an illegal alien, an undocumented immigrant, avoid arrest after he appeared in her courtroom. So we are in an area of law and law enforcement which we have not been in before. To arrest a judge in Milwaukee, and this is what Kash Patel said in his posting. We believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest. Patel's quote read, Thankfully, our agents chased down the perp on foot, and he's been in custody since. But the judge's obstruction created increased danger to the public." So she's being held now in federal custody before her initial appearance, after which then she was released. She was held earlier, and she regrets and protests her arrest, and it was not made, she says, in the interest of public safety. And she said that through her attorney. The arrest on federal charges is an escalation of the Trump administration's focus on judges' conduct. The Justice Department repeatedly asserted that it will investigate any local officials who do not assist federal authorities on immigration matters. And, it's a slippery slope with judges, Kim, because if you deem that somebody is not guilty of what they're guilty, what the prosecutors are saying they're guilty of, if you rule, if your court asks them to come back, if they're released on their own recognizance, these are what the things that judges do in their daily life, is they make those determinations. Now you have a judge being arrested because the administration disagrees with her stance and blames her for releasing a criminal out into the streets. It's a place that I don't remember us being, but if you go back to the 30s and 40s and you read texts in other languages, I'm sure you'll see things like this.
It's really surprising. When I saw the news this morning, when you I don't know. Perhaps she obstructed justice. We don't know. But usually, aren't there other ways to discipline a judge or to, make sure that a judge is complying with the law rather than an arrest like this?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I think that they're obviously trying to publicize this sort of thing and make a spectacle,
Right.
so that people get them out of here, right? They're trying to sort of fan the flames of racism um, and also say that this is how we are enforcing our new immigration policies, not just on the border, but in a courtroom in Milwaukee. And the officers waited in the courtroom and then waited outside, and then they did what they had. I think they were plain clothes officers, immigration officers, who were there. So Flores Ruiz was a Mexican immigrant, and he'd been issued an order of removal in 2013,
Mhm.
left the country, was removed through Arizona, and then immigration officials learned he was back in the country illegally after his fingerprints and photographs were taken after his recent arrest and compared to his alien registration file. So I don't know. I don't think any of us here or anywhere know enough about Flores Ruiz, but we do know enough about due process, and we do know enough about leaving the judiciary in charge of things judicial. And this kind of intimidation and fear that they're trying to sow is, I mean, they're unbelievable. I mean, this is a whole new terrain to arrest a judge. This is not arresting a judge for a crime that they committed, for a DUI or for uplifting. This is arresting a judge for being a judge and agreeing with what that judge did.
So Deidre writes, one news source said this woman supposedly ushered this guy out of a side jury door so he could avoid ICE. In many cities across the country, courts and local police agencies won't cooperate with ICE because it's part of some type of local ordinance to ensure that people that are undocumented will come forward if they hear about a crime or they feel unsafe or what have you. So it could be that that's just the way it was always done in this
Yeah.
area. I don't know. We have a package about this. Albert, let's see a little bit more about this case. I think we've got a news piece.
A judge in Wisconsin was arrested this morning at the very courthouse where she works. Joining us now is NBC's Tom Winter. Back with us is Timoteo Oganga Williams. So, Tom, what exactly happened here?
Right. So the details are still coming in, but the reporting comes from our colleague Mike Cosner at our Washington, D.C. bureau. He's reporting that Judge Hannah Dugan, who she's a Milwaukee County Circuit judge, was arrested this morning, quote, for allegedly assisting an undocumented immigrant in avoiding arrest after he appeared in her courtroom last week. Apparently, and by the way, we found out about all of this because the FBI director, Kash Patel, issued a tweet that has since been deleted. We're not sure why it was deleted, announcing this arrest and announcing these charges. And he said, quote, "We believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, allowing the subject, an illegal alien," his words, "to evade arrest," end quote. So we're still trying to get some of the details as to what this individual was specifically brought into court for, what charges they were specifically facing, and some of the details of this arrest. I checked, just as you were talking to our colleague Chris Jansing there in Rome, the docket in Wisconsin, the federal charging documents have not yet been unsealed in this particular case. That's not particularly unusual when an arrest happens, and sometimes it takes a while for that paperwork. And remember, there's a time difference as well to appear on the record. So again, still trying to get some details, but again, the arrest was apparently made at 9:30 Eastern time this morning. This follows, by the way, Jose.
Follows a bunch of immigration cases. So that's what we got. And I have to say, this is really concerning to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning on a lot of levels. And I think one of the compelling parts of, or one of the takes on this is from Gwen Moore. She's a Wisconsin representative who represents Milwaukee and that area. And I said Dugan before. They said Dugan on TV. I'm not sure if it is Dugan or Dugan. There was Max Dugan Returns was a movie, and there is one G in this judge's name. So I'm going with the soft G. But if she's Dugan, apologies. And that's the last thing that she's waiting for an apology for, by the way. So Moore called it shocking, said it was overreach. She said federal law enforcement coming into a community and arresting a judge is a serious matter and would require high legal bar. She was alarmed at this increasingly these increasingly lawless actions of the Trump administration, and in particular ICE, who have been defying courts and acting with disregard for the Constitution. That's Win Moore, the representative from Wisconsin, Democrat. These sorts of things are the hallmark of a society that is sort of run amok. I mean, I think that there may be real reason to be upset with Judge Dugan. And there may be real reason to think that this guy should have been deported, arrested, all of those things. But again, we're back to due process, and we entrust our judges and our court personnel and our prosecutors and our defense attorneys and our public defenders to deal with the law appropriately and properly. And I think that even if this judge were to have facilitated this person not being detained, it is her courtroom, and she has been put in that place because her judgment was deemed sound. If you don't like her, she will retire. You can replace her with someone else. I don't know if these judges are elected in Milwaukee, but I think you've probably just made a hero out of this judge in some ways as well, which is unwitting on the part of the people that did this arrest.
Yeah. We'll see what happens to her. I just go back to there are other ways to deal with the judges. Judicial review, they can be rebuked or what have you. They don't need to be arrested in their courtrooms. But I think it looks like it all comes down to the way she ushered him out some side door to get away from ICE and Trump not having that. This is, they've come down heavy on immigrants and people who help immigrants. How does that feel? Wow.
Yeah. And we're only 3 months into this administration, a little more than 3 months into this administration. So these sort of things are going to continue to happen, and they demand a proper reaction. And the frustrating thing for people who are upset by this, I mean, the very frustrating thing is that there doesn't seem to be a great deal of recourse inside of the Congress right now. And that's a problem, but it's a problem that can be dealt with sooner than Trump can be dealt with, and sooner than the White House can be dealt with, and that's next year. And so as much attention as these things gets, the hope is that for Democrats is that the cumulative effect of these things is what makes change. Of course, that is optimistic if you're a Democrat. It is there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not a done deal. And there are a lot of people in this country that are probably very happy about Judge Dugan getting arrested in their courtroom.
Well, from one courtroom to another, it looks like George Santos was not pleased this morning.
Yeah, no. George Santos, the former congressman, the fraudster, the tax evader, Santos, Santos from the New York area was a congressman, resigned or was censured and then resigned. I don't know if he was it. I don't remember exactly what happened. He didn't get removed from office, but he didn't do well next. He was sentenced to 87 months in jail, and prosecutors.
I had to do the calculations. I had to do the calculations. I'm like, 87 months. How long is that? 7 years, 3 months.
Yeah, it's over 7 years. And Santos was sobbing in the courtroom on Friday. He owned up to this, said he betrayed the confidence entrusted in him. And he says, I cannot rewrite the past, but I can control the road ahead. I have tried my best. And the prosecutors say, well, you may have tried your best, but you have a podcast called Pants on Fire, which basically implies that you're still celebrating your lies. And just, those 87 months were more than the 24, which was the minimum, and that's what Santos's attorneys were asking for. Just because of the fact that he was they say he was contrite and remorseful. The judge said you weren't.
Right.
The prosecutor said you stole money, you stole the identities, you spent money on vacations and clothes, and he got there because of lies. And 87 months is really harsh. Santos the other day, maybe even yesterday, ahead of the sentencing, said he's not going to ask Trump for clemency because he wants to say that he was guilty, and he doesn't want to mess with the notion that he's going before the court to take his punishment and be guilty. Now he's sobbing before the court, and you can be sure he's going to try and talk to the president in some way. Santos, for his part, is let me just read this to you. He represented the probation department that he has earned approximately $400,000 during the first month of his career on Cameo, and now receives $5,000 per month on average. Yet he represented in a financial statement to the government that his lifetime earnings from Cameo are only $358,000. So he's lying to someone, the filing by prosecutors said. And the judge in this case said it's this is what the judge said. Sorry, there's so much going on in this case.
There's so many lies, Michael Shure.
Well, there's so many lies, but I mean, this is from Joanna Seibert, who asked Santos before sentencing him to 87 months behind bars, said, "Where is the remorse?" Seibert handed down the sentence after Santos made a tearful plea for mercy and acknowledged he betrayed the confidence of his constituents. The judge did not appear moved by Santos' sobs. She said she doesn't like sending people to jail, but Santos was fully deserving of the lengthy sentence. Prosecutors had urged Seibert to throw the book at Santos and for allowing him to reflect the seriousness of his unparalleled crimes. So, one of the things is that George Santos never took this stuff seriously. He never took it seriously when he was in Congress. He never took it seriously when he was out campaigning, when he was showing up to States of the Union and the vote for speaker, because once you're a member of Congress, you have floor rights for the rest of your life. He never took any of that seriously. And then he gets before the court and they're taking it seriously. Will he get clemency? I don't know if it behooves Donald Trump to give George Santos clemency. Sadly, I don't know that it hurts Donald Trump either. I don't know what hurts him, right? I mean, the things that used to matter don't matter anymore.
George Santos, acts like Trump Jr., acts like somehow he has this magical power that things won't stick to him. And he's sorry now. He's sorry today and crying before the judge today. But we've been covering this week his flippant, belligerent attitude where he was clearly showing that he has no remorse and that he is not sorry. He called the court and the prosecutors and the people coming after him in charging him for these things, this fraud, a cabal of pedophiles. He's, said the most horrible things, showing that he's putting the blame on everyone else instead of himself. We've seen that before. The problem with George Santos is he doesn't have whatever magic Trump has that allows him to slip slide his way past all the consequences. So now we have a consequence. I think he'll change his tune. I think once he's faced with the real prospect of 7 years and 3 months in prison, he'll be publicly begging Trump for a pardon.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. And I mean, I don't know how publicly you can beg from prison, but it'll certainly be something that comes up. It may not happen, until the end of Trump's term, may not happen until the 2 years that this guy should serve. And then Trump says, that they said he should serve. That then Trump says he served enough time for this, and it's time to let George Santos out. I last saw Santos at the Republican convention in Milwaukee last summer, and I asked Santos. I said, "How's your case going?" He said, "I'll be fine." I said, "Are you afraid of jail?" He said, "I'm not afraid of anything." I mean, he said that to me. And now I'm guessing by his reported demeanor in court today, that he might be afraid of something. And the other part of this story that I always like to tell is that George Santos never should have ascended to his place as the nominee. And it's more of a lesson and more of, I think, an underscoring of how important local media is. Because had there been a local paper in his district that hadn't shut down like the one there did, was a weekly or maybe a bi-weekly, semi-weekly, happened, I think it came out twice a week, and I don't recall the name of it, they would have done the kind of reporting on this candidate and done the digging that wasn't done. And had they done that digging, it wouldn't have made national news until the New York Times or the Washington Post picked up that story, and some industrious reporter saw it and said, we got to look into this guy. This guy might win a seat from New York, and he's a fraud. And that's sort of what happens.
It's not going to. It's going to happen again, because we see over and over again local news agencies closing up, a focus on journalism, drying up. And so it's not, that we learn a lesson from this. It's that it's going to get worse, and we're not going to have an informed electorate, because we're not going to be able to have the people doing the job.
Right. That's exactly right. And so we bemoan the way we get our media and our news now. We're not going to change it, but we have to pay attention to what we're losing, and we have to adjust. Right. I mean, it's not going to be like all of a sudden 18 to 26-year-olds are going to start reading the papers again. It's not going to happen. It's sad. It's the nostalgia of it, the time of it, all of it. It's how I grew up, but that doesn't make it right. Stuff happens, technology happens, and we move forward. I still get my newspaper delivered, but that's because I'm 107 years old. But truthfully, I think that if we there has to be some kind of an adjustment to get local news, a way of getting local news nationalized so that people can see these stories. And I think it's important. I really do.
Let's talk about this other lady who she's another alleged fraudster. This is another politician who decided that she was going to collect money to erect a statue in honor of a fallen police officer. So she does, and she, starts getting this money together, and she comes up with $70,000 that people donate to remember this officer. Except for she doesn't spend it all on the statue. Allegedly,
You're kidding.
Imagine when it's uncovered that some of the money went toward plastic surgery for her, some of the money went toward her daughter's wedding, and some of the money went toward her cost of living, like rent. This is what she's accused for. She's a 54-year-old woman who served as a Las Vegas city councilwoman. Her name is Michelle Fiore, and she was found guilty in October of 6 counts of federal wire fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and she's out of custody ahead of her sentencing, which is scheduled for next month. So she's putting her statements on Facebook, and the story is rising to the surface again. Yeah, come on. I just using it. The prosecutor said she's using a tragedy to line her own pockets.
Well, I mean, the assumption is, and I don't know because I don't know much about Michelle Fiore, but I do think that she probably was an early supporter. I mean, she was a Las Vegas city councilwoman, and then was on in the state house there, ran for a statewide office. I do think that she probably, if we dig into it, was an early endorser of Donald Trump, because that kind of loyalty is what gets you pardons and gets you favors with Donald Trump. If
So
you were with
she got
Trump,
pardoned. Yeah, she's pardoned by Donald
yeah, no,
Trump.
that's what
How
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that kind of behavior, it gets you pardoned. If you look at January 6th, right? Pardon, 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 pardon.
Mhm.
And so if you are loyal to this man, you get the gravy. And if you change that, if you change your stripes, you get name called and you get ostracized, and you get your Secret Service credentials pulled, like Mike Pompeo. And whatever you thought of him, Mike Pompeo, a smart, deserving member of that last administration, whatever you thought of him, because I don't think a lot of people agreed with Mike Pompeo, but as soon as his loyalty changed and he spoke out against the former president, that was it for him. He was done. They pulled his John Bolton, the same thing, pulled his credentials. We'll use John Bolton when we need him, but he'll criticize us, and then we're going to pull his security and his credentials and his security clearances. It's just it's absurd, and and that's why Michelle Fiore probably got a pardon, because she probably stayed with Trump the whole way.
I don't know how Republicans or MAGA or whomever circling around Trump can say they're the party of law and order, can say they're the party of supporting police officers. And in this case, when this woman clearly did not use the money to remember a police officer, but used it on herself, on plastic surgery and paying for her child's wedding, used the
Yeah.
money
Can
meant
we
to honor a
can we
police
bring that
officer.
can we bring that photo up of her again, the post plastic surgery photo, Albert? Just see.
I just don't know what good optics this has for President Trump when it comes to supporting law enforcement officers, and it seems hypocritical.
Yeah. Well, it does, but it's blind, that support. So I'm not an expert on plastic surgery, but I'm guessing it's between the neck and the navel. The whole, yeah, I agree with you, but I think that there's the appeal that Trump has, the wanting to do this for people who they were with us, the
Mhm.
us versus them. The us is so powerful to him. And because he has so much power, he wields it in that way. I don't think, and we brought this up because we're talking about George Santos. I don't think it'll be the same for George Santos. I would not be surprised if he gets pardoned. I don't think he's going to get pardoned on Monday. I don't think it's going to happen quickly. I've been wrong more than I've been right about Donald Trump, though. So
Well, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I don't know. Michelle Fiore. Meanwhile, Trump is also pretty upset with Rupert Murdoch as well, because Fox News did a survey. It shows his approval ratings are down, and he's not happy with Murdoch. He's not happy with Fox. He's lashing out against the Wall Street Journal. He's not happy about that. He's just not happy in general.
yeah, I mean, so this is, again, when he's getting information that he disagrees with for non-scientific reasons and polling is the science, he thinks that it's fake, right? And he said that, first of all, my favorite part of this is because, and this ties into something we'll be talking about later in the show, with what Trump has said about Xi and what he said about Zelensky. But he said, Trump has said that Murdoch has been telling him forever that he's going to get rid of his Fox News, what do you call it? Fox News Trump-hating fake pollster, but he's never done that. And there's nobody who knows that was ever said, right? He's also said to Murdoch he should get rid of the China-loving Wall Street Journal. He doesn't like when he takes it personally when poll numbers are bad. When they're good, he embraces them. When they're bad for others, there's never been polls this bad for Joe Biden or Jimmy Carter or Barack Obama. Oh, there's the history of polling. There's never, but those numbers he's fine with. When they tell him that things aren't going well, and when he thinks, we were just talking about loyalty and fealty, when he thinks that a pollster is going against him, and that there is disloyalty from a network that should be loyal to him, then he won't have any of it. And it's his MO. And again, it's worked. So say what you will about it, and we'll keep saying as much as we can about it. But whatever he's been doing, it's been working.
Ahead of Friday Fabulous Florida, let's hit this story about tariffs, because there's a big question mark, Michael Shure, as to whether the Trump administration is actually negotiating with China or not. They say, yeah, oh
Well,
yeah.
I don't know what the question. Yeah, I don't know what the question mark is, Kim. Trump said that they're negotiating with China. End
China
of story,
says,
right? Why are we even bothering with this?
China says they're not even at the table. They're not talking to Trump at all. It seems like, this is a headline I saw last night, China is leaving Trump twisting in the wind. Trump appears to be waiting for China to come to the table, and in the interim is saying, oh yeah, we're meeting with China. We're going to make a deal. It's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine. And he's got pressure mounting. He's got the roller coaster of a market. He's got concerns about the dollar. He's got the big three CEOs of Target, Walmart, and Home Depot coming to the Oval Office saying the store shelves are going to be empty. You need to make a deal and do something. And China's now looking askance saying, we have no motivation to deal with this guy who is a bully. And they are going around the world putting together a coalition of other countries to have a trade deal, a trade pact that doesn't include the United States. China is saying, we don't need you if you're going to act this way. Screw you. And so now Trump is left sitting there, twiddling his thumbs with nothing.
Right. Yeah. And this whole idea, and do we have something that we can play on this? Isn't there something? Do we have any sound on China?
We actually have a video from this morning where Trump was asked again about China and whether he's negotiating.
Yeah, let's look at that.
Mr. President, you said that you have spoken to President Xi. When did that happen? China says it hasn't happened.
I spoke to him numerous times. So we're leaving and going to Rome.
Yeah,
where we'll be attending the funeral.
He's asked multiple times, even again after he talks about going to the Pope's funeral, and he talks about Ukraine. The reporters don't let up. They're like, "When did you meet with Xi?
Right.
When was the last happen?
Yeah. When was the last time you heard a reporter shout? When was the last time? And China, for their part, as we've said, is saying never happened. This is not happening, and there's no negotiation over tariffs. And he's saying this. Trump is saying this because he's starting to get pushback from business leaders who are saying this isn't going well. Right? We're in trouble. So he's putting on the front that they're in negotiations with China. And like when you go and listen to some of these, they're not just Democrats who are complaining about it. Ken Griffin, who is a major donor. He's the founder of or CEO of Citadel, and which, as far as I can tell you, is not the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. It is like a fund, and he claims that the country has gotten 20% poorer in 4 weeks. And Ken Griffin is a big Trump supporter, and he is somebody who's very, very involved in making sure involved in making sure that the president was reelected. So these are the things he's hearing. So what is he doing? He's not just lying to us. He's not just lying to that press pool waiting outside Marine One there. He's lying to his donors. He's lying to the richest people here. So he's telling Ken Griffin, don't worry about it. Yeah, the country's in bad shape, but it's a taste of bad medicine, but the medicine will help. I'm speaking to Xi. We're working on this. And nobody knows if he's spoken to Xi or not. I mean, as far as we know, he hasn't spoken to Xi about it. And it's astonishing stuff, because generally speaking, he would say, or president would say, I'm not going to get into the specifics. We've spoken 4 times as recently as Tuesday, right? Making this up. And I'm not going to answer any questions about it, right? There you go. And they have
negotiations
the right to do
are sensitive and what have you. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Well,
or my envoys have been speaking to them. I spoke once with Xi, whatever it is. But he's making this up out of whole cloth, is what it appears.
Well, China appears to know the way to dig in, to get Trump, because they have this new hashtag called Trump chickens out. And let's listen. We have a report on this.
And good evening, I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, Trump chickened out. At least that is what the Chinese are saying. I mean, that post with the viral hashtag Trump chicken out now has 150 million views in China and counting, after Trump all but caved to Xi Jinping.
We are going to have a fair deal with China. It's going to be fair.
Are you talking to them actively now?
Actively. Everything's active.
Mr. President, has there been any direct contact between the U.S. and China for trade at all?
Yeah, of course.
And
Every day.
Every day and active. I mean, you know, the implication here, what it sounds like is there's a big deal. It's being worked on. Things are happening. We're moving forward. Well, the problem is that he was undermined in that sentiment and rhetoric by his own Treasury Secretary, who told reporters this morning that, quote, both sides are waiting to speak to the other. Waiting to speak to the other. I mean, that's the whole waiting by the phone thing that's been going on for weeks now. Of course, talking takes 2 seconds in a situation like this. If something real starts, it literally takes 2 seconds. In fact, the Chinese finance minister is in Washington, D.C. as I speak, yet we'll show him to you. He is there not meeting with the Trump team right now. But why did Trump put 145% tariffs on China only to back down? Why would that happen? I mean, because according to the Wall Street Journal tonight, Trump is considering major concessions, potentially slashing some tariffs on Chinese imports by more than half. And that's pretty incredible. To cut by more than half when you haven't even started negotiating means you are negotiating against yourself. And that comes as Trump sounds like a completely different person when it comes to Beijing. I mean, just listen to him over the past 24 hours.
We're doing fine with China.
I'm not going to say, I'm going to play hardball with China. We're going to be very nice. We're going to be very good to China.
I mean, that rhetoric, good to China, nice to China, is radically different than what we have heard from Trump. I mean, radically different. And words matter here. Words have started this whole thing. Listen to what he said since the beginning of the trade war.
Look, for years we've been ripped off and taken advantage of by China.
What other presidents allow China to get away with is absolutely criminal.
China obviously treats us very badly. China's an abuser.
China's ripping off the United States for $1 trillion a year.
Yeah.
And that
I think we got the point there.
Yeah, but that was a great segment by
Mhm.
Aaron there, because
Yeah.
it's exactly. I mean, it shows you the two sides of this guy. I mean, he was talking about the Wall Street Journal, right? And the Wall Street Journal is what he called the China-loving Wall Street Journal that Rupert Murdoch should get a hold of or get rid of. I mean, and yet here he's saying we're going to be nice to China. We're going to be nice to China. I mean, if that's, you know, somebody who just wrote in the comments here, if he's going to be nice to China, take off the stupid tariffs. Yeah, that's a good way to be nice to China. And there are reasons to play hardball with China, of course. But because that's how they play it with us. But these tariffs, as everybody's starting to see, is a disaster, are a disaster. Jack says it's also radically different that Democrats are rooting for China because they dislike Trump. Talk about anti-American. Well, I think that I don't know that Democrats are rooting for China, and I appreciate your opinion there. I just sort of feel as if they're rooting against these tariffs because they screw everybody, and China among them. So if you're against the tariffs, you are by default pulling for China here because you think the tariffs are bad for us. And if China is a beneficiary of getting rid of the tariffs, so be it. There are lots of reasons, and Democrats are most profound on them when it comes to human rights violations and doing business there, and most favored nation status and all of those things, that Democrats have huge problems with China. But on the other side, if these tariffs are hurting the United States, a lot of Democrats are saying, you know, great, if it's good for China, fantastic, but we care about us. And I do think that's true.
Does he look weak? Does he look weak after saying, it's going to be, you know, as you saw in the video there, we're coming after China. China's been ripping us off for years. I'm going to hold strong on these tariffs. And then he meets with the CEOs of the big three and finally realizes, maybe I'm a little going at this the wrong way, and he seems to soften himself up. But I wonder if and then China's not meeting with us at all, and I'm wondering if it makes America look weak.
Yeah, I don't know whose take on America looks weak is most important. I think we know that European leaders and the ones who are and the Canadian leaders and many Latin American leaders look at America, and whether or not it's weak, that they seem to be talking amongst themselves over how misguided America is right now. And if that's weakness, that may be weakness. But it's I think a lot of people find the weakness in America that they reelected this man more
50% of the time,
more so than what he's doing. Albert has something to say, apparently.
Oh, I think you played a drop, but I'm not sure which
yeah,
one it
I
was.
accidentally just hit a fat finger on the button.
Carry on.
Yeah, no. So I mean, that's where that's kind of, I think, where weak is there are better words. Weak is a weak word for weak, but somebody said weak and stupid. I mean, I think so. I think how we are perceived. It depends on how we are perceived. Are we perceived by the American electorate as weak? Well, they elected Trump because they thought Biden was weak, and they think Trump is stronger. The rest of the world doesn't see it that way, and they think that it's misguided, that he is actually the president again. So it's a complicated thing. Louis writes in, I haven't read this yet, Trump is just BS about the fair trade. He's just acting like a strong man to his voters. In the end, he doesn't have the card to back it up. He's only trying to save face now. Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know when he stops caring about his voters, because he won't face them even if he says he's going to face them. And even if he is selling, or there are Trump 2028 hats being sold in the Trump merch world, I don't think I don't think it's voter centric, and that voter centricity will wait as it goes on. I invented that word. You can ding it if you want, but I think that will wane as time goes on.
Jay writes, Trump is bullying those. Oh, dang. Trump is bullying the world, and that's unpatriotic. And I think that goes to the comment about why it seems like maybe some Americans are rooting for China in all of this, because it's you always seem to root for the person who's being bullied. And it seems like they're being bullied in this situation. It's hard to root for Trump at all.
No, and the analog happens, and to that happens between Russia and Ukraine, right? It happens between Israel and Gaza, and the perceived underdog in all these cases, the legitimate underdogs, and it rarely is China this underdog, but they're lumped in with that group. I think you're exactly right, Kim, and I think that's what is getting some of the sympathies from this group. That's what's getting some of the sympathies for China, because people are seeing it. And look, there have been times throughout history where we are isolationist and we are protectionist, and before the First World War, before the Second World War, and we do these sorts of extreme policies that make the world look at us and say, what the hell are you doing? But they haven't seemed to persevere, and they don't usually work except for a little while. This one isn't even working for a little while. This has been blowing up in his face the whole time.
Yeah, it's true. We have to do something to get to, because if we don't do it now, we might miss it altogether. And it's Friday, so we have to do Friday Fabulous Florida.
Well, do we want to do news first and then Friday Fabulous Florida? I thought that was the plan that we've gotten away from.
We do have a plan, but I don't know if we have time now.
Oh, really? So, okay.
Maybe we can use this
so we've got
brief time to mention one of our Friday sponsors, and then we'll get to Friday Fabulous Florida.
Our Friday sponsor is Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Yeah. Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore is such a good place. They have so many events coming up. I don't know if you have, do you like to go wine tasting, Michael Shure?
No, but I don't not like doing it. I mean, it's fun. I find wine, I think it's fun. I think I like wine, but I'm not really when people sit around and talk about notes of huckleberry and chocolate, and I just roll my eyes.
Yeah.
This wine's good. This one's better than that one.
Are you more of a beer drinker then?
No, I like wine more than I like
Yeah.
beer too, but I like them both.
Okay.
I like rum the most, but and I really do like wine. I just don't like the kind of the aura of a tasting. I love seeing the places; they're beautiful. I would love to go to Tenuta Vineyards and taste their
Yes.
wine. I'm just not going to be like
You're not going to be
like
snobby about it.
hoity-toity about it. Yeah.
Let me
Be
tell you,
willing
well,
to
as a,
bet my
as a
lunch
wine
that there's alcohol involved.
As a girl in the wine country, I'm a little snooty about my wine. They are
You
not
could be.
snobby
That's
about wine in Livermore at Tenuta Vineyards, especially. They have a lot of different varietals. They have beer on tap in the tasting room. So if you don't like wine, they've got beer for you as well. That shows you how relaxed they are about everything.
Yeah.
As you can tell from the video here, the property is gorgeous. They have a place for parties, for events, and they have a Mother's Day gathering. They have all kinds of events coming up. Check the website. It's tenutavineyards.com. I'm holding this bottle of wine because if you haven't tasted this wine, you need to. It's the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red. It is amazing. There is a white wine as well. And with summer coming up and your opportunities to drink wine by the pool, this is the Hey, Which One of You is Mark Thompson Pinot Grigio. So that is going on as well. And you get 10% off just for being a Mark Thompson Show listener, but you have to use the phrase that pays. You've got to either call Rich out at the vineyard or email, and you have to say, smash it with your iron rod.
Smash it with your iron rod.
And if you say this, you get your discount. And then there's even a bigger discount if you order a whole case. And let me tell you, a case of the Why Are You Yelling Red? Yes, please. Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. You can find them at the email address rich@tenutavineyard.com. Or you can go ahead and give Rich a call to get your discount as well. The phone number is 925-699-4576. And we love our Tenuta Vineyards.
Yeah, and look at that. I mean, how could you not want to go there? That's freaking beautiful, and that's what I love. That is the stuff I like about wine testing. I don't like the other people that are there from other places and say that it tastes like things that they can't possibly know, or I'm not sophisticated enough. But I do love wine.
They only do that in Napa. They don't do that. They're not all snobby in Livermore. This is the place for you. Yeah.
All right, then that's where I need to go. Yeah, no
That's
question.
it.
All right, I'll call Rich too.
Awesome. All right, it's time for Friday Fabulous Florida. Woohoo!
The Mark Thompson Show.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
Well, this is like I always say, one of my favorite parts of doing the show is Friday Fabulous Florida, because I don't usually get to play because I'm usually up next, and so that's that. This is a special privilege for me to be back doing Friday Fabulous Florida. Now, what I will say here is that. Okay, here we have the Florida Man. Okay, FFF. That's how they abbreviate it here. We're going to go. Yeah. You guys are clever. You got it right by me. The very first story we're doing, I think when the first word is alligator, you know you're in the right segment. Alligator comes knocking. A Florida woman finds an unexpected visitor at her front door. Now, you can't tell me, Kim and Albert, that this story hasn't been done before, but I guess
but it doesn't get old.
It never gets old. So a Florida woman discovered a massive alligator knocking at her front door, captured on her doorbell camera. We always see wildlife, but not this up close. So a Lake Mary resident. Yeah, exactly. Natalie Gaines from Lake Mary, Florida, encountered an unexpected visitor at her front door late one evening after hearing strange noises outside. Gaines checked her doorbell camera and discovered a large alligator sitting calmly at her doorstep. I mean, making noise and knocking, but calm nonetheless. She estimated the animal to be approximately 7 to 8 feet long. Despite its intimidating presence, the gator did not appear aggressive, merely patient and oddly polite, as it seemed to knock or bump the door. Gaines has lived in Lake Mary for some time, no stranger to wildlife. She reports regular sightings of deer and even bears in the area. However, she emphasized that this is the first time she has seen an alligator in such proximity. It's situated in Central Florida.
I don't know what the hell they do it
natural
for.
habitats. And she said, I heard a knock at the door and then nothing else. I waited a little while and then I heard it again. She then looked at her doorbell camera, saw the reptilian visitor. There was a full-blown alligator sitting at our front door. I feel like full-blown isn't in the intro to there's an alligator in my kitchen, right? It's the same type of thing. The first time when it knocked on the door, what's that?
I was gonna say, it reminds me of that Saturday Night Live sketch with the shark at the door. You know, Candy Graham or flowers, anything to be able to get in. But I look at her house and I see that she's got those glass doors. And I don't know if that's good or bad, because in this case, you could see the alligator through the glass doors and not open. But also, I don't know if it would be easy for the alligator to break through the glass. I don't know how I feel about that. But an 8-foot alligator at your front door, that's wild.
In case of emergency, break glass.
Break glass.
So they called the trapper, and then by the time the trapper was either on the way or not, they canceled the trapper because the alligator went off on his own back to nature and did what alligators do and disappeared into like the swamp or whatever. So that was the first one. An alligator. My favorite part is that it was knocking on the door. Right, that's what makes it different than just an alligator.
Exactly.
And so this is a great one. This is very very Florida. A Lakewood Ranch man said he dived into a lake with no hesitation. This is in Lakewood Ranch, Florida, as you all know. Dived into a lake with no hesitation to rescue a wounded eagle. I've been around animals my whole life. I love animals, shared Doug Hay, who's almost 70 now. According to Hay, the key thing is safety first. If you injure yourself, you won't be able to rescue the animal. Anyway, Doug did a very brave thing. Hay says he always saves animals whenever he can and doesn't regret saving the eagle. This is the symbol of America, man, he shared. So, right. Kudos to Lakewood Ranch with Doug Hay. And then
I'm surprised he wasn't more injured, because those the eagle would probably be fighting, and he said he had some scratches. He should have taken the tank top off and wrapped it around his arm, and then you see what I mean,
right? But he ripped it off. He ripped off the shirt, flipped off his threw off his flip flops, and dived in. That's the Florida trifecta. So you can't stop to do a tourniquet because there's only room for 3 things to do in the Florida trifecta.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's what you run into. And then we have our third. We go to Florida, the wildlife of Florida, to the wildlife of Florida. When a Florida man casually offers officers a vodka spritzer during a police chase.
Oh, that's nice.
This is in Highland County, Florida. Right. We go from White Claw from Eagle Claw to White Claw. Florida deputies in Highlands County were left stunned when a suspect in the midst of a vehicle chase casually offered them alcohol. After the pursuit, the man questioned the reason for his arrest, and according to body camera footage, asked deputies, "You guys had fun though, right?" On Saturday, shortly before 3 p.m., and deputies responded to the Spring Lake Market after receiving a report that a man later identified as Richard Smith had allegedly stolen multiple items, including alcoholic beverages. Authorities said the 39-year-old Miami man was in a black minivan and was reported driving circles around the store, but sped off when law enforcement arrived. Maybe should have left a little earlier. As a result, a miles-long chase began, which ended in the parking lot of a business at Sebring Airport. I was going to give you a drink. During the case, Smith allegedly held out a can of Kettle One vodka spritz out of his vehicle's window as he drove by. The deputy was trying to pull him over, saying, "I was just going to give you a drink. That's it."
Mark
Soon
says,
after the deputy,
vodka spritzer for you officers?
Right, yeah. That's exactly right. And so
arrested. There he is being arrested.
So you have that. There he is. Yeah, even through generosity. I mean, it might limit his sentence, but through generosity, Smith was then tased following the crash and a smoke break and was arrested.
Oh, Michael Shure went away. I love this. Calvin Wong says, well, he's a friendly drunk, so at least there's that. Hopefully we'll get Michael Shure back in a moment, but let's recap it, because we've got The case of the alligator knocking on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Alligator. That's a good one. Then we have the second story, the eagle saver, the man ripping off his tank top and his flip-flops and leaping into an alligator lake. At least there's one gator in there to rescue an American eagle, the symbol of our country, right? And then we have the vodka spritzer for you officers during the middle of a chase. So I ask you, Albert, what is your favorite?
Well, the chat, it seems pretty 30-30-30 for right now in the vote. It looks like everybody is going. It's a tough one this week. All three are really good. I got to go with the true American. He sacrificed his life to save an eagle. I feel like you should win an award or something. You know.
I have to go with the land shark alligator version. The alligator knocking on the front door. So.
I feel like you like the gator stories, Kim.
I do. Well, I mean, how do you not do a gator story? I don't know. Here comes Michael Shure. We recapped it.
Oh, you did recap it. Okay.
We recapped it. What's your favorite of the week?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the hardest thing that we have to do here at the Mark Thompson Show is send two losers home. It's painful, but it's the job we signed up for. You know, I know that a lot of people are going to vote for Bachelor number 3, the vodka spritzer guy, because it is a fantastic story. But I mean, I do like the guy jumping in to save the eagle, the Florida man saying this is the symbol of America, man, and that he kicked off his flip-flops and ripped off his shirt and threw down his cell phone to go get the eagle. And I would have voted for the vodka spritzer, but there was also an alligator involved in the second one. So any mention of alligator that is not the focal point of the story, I'm going to have to unfortunately give it to the man in the middle, and that's the symbol of America, man, the eagle.
John Slade says, whenever you offer a cop a mixed drink, that shows some moxie.
Yeah, that's true. What do we think? Albert, did you vote?
Oh, the chat likes true American, so I think.
They do, really. I was thinking. I thought vodka spritzer would go, they'd spike the ball and go home.
Yeah, no, just by a little bit. So 36%, and then 32 and 33 for the other two.
Wow,
so very close.
Listen, I'm privileged to be here on a day where it's so close, and I can't believe as many people voted for the knocking alligator as did, because
I voted for the knocking alligator.
Yeah. It seems like we've been there before, but they don't always knock.
No,
it's a true Florida greatest hit.
Which
is, we're waiting the whole concert to hear that one song, and that's the alligator mention.
That's true, right?
Yeah. It's so awesome. I love it.
It's true. You still like Margaritaville at the end. That's a good point. All right, so we did have a winner, but everybody goes home happy.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
So he's forgotten more about. No.
No, that's you.
No, that's me. Do we have and great job everybody on culling those Friday Fabulous Florida stories and the audience really stepping up with a proper vote. And I think they did
the Mark Thompson Show.
Do we have our friend? Jim Avila? All right,
he has arrived. Jim Avila is in the house.
Let me guess the cap. Is he wearing cap or no cap? I'm gonna guess. He's got a Cubs cap on again this week.
I think you would be right.
All right, good.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, this is my segment, and then it was mine and Jim's, and Jim did better things. Then he came back and thought, I just want my spot back. Well, you got it back, Jim. We're happy to have you. And I'm going to recede from the host's chair to join my friend Jim and let Kim guide this segment. So it's, so that Jim is comfortable.
I know. I have so many stories to present to you. Hi, Jim Avila.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning to you. You're looking good. First of all, let's talk about Ukraine and Russia, because Trump is now saying that the concession for Ukraine is that Russia's not taking, or the concession for Russia is that they don't get to take the whole country of Ukraine. And that there's another story saying Ukraine may have to cede land to Russia. This doesn't sound like a great deal for Ukraine. The more I'm looking at the peace deal, the more it looks like Ukraine's getting the bad end of the deal here.
Well, you have to remember that what Trump's philosophy of world government is, and that's power. And the Russians have much more power than the Ukrainians. So Trump is going to side with his buddy Putin. And yes, the peace treaty that he wants them to sign would cede territory, including I think it's primarily Crimea. So if he's going to, so they've had Crimea. Russia's had Crimea since 2014. 2014. Yes. So during Obama's presidency, and they will continue to have it, and they've had it for a while. So that my guess is that that's what's going to happen. Is they're going to give up Crimea, and they will not give up the rest of the territory that Russia has conquered during this latest invasion. But we'll see. Certainly Trump is on Putin's side.
Yeah, and Trump, for his part, has said, and this is while an imperfect quote because it's not verbatim. He said Crimea has been Russian since, and he said primarily Russian. It's been Russian since 2014, and he said that was Obama gave it to them. Trump didn't give it to them.
Right.
Nobody gave it to them, right? I mean, they took it.
Yeah.
And Obama nor Trump had anything to do with it, right? I mean, it's not. This was something that Russia decided they wanted to do. So it wasn't given by anyone or not given by anyone. It was, the American president was not consulted on this and did not draw up the plans to conquer Crimea. And I think it's important too that if it doesn't work out where Zelensky and his people agree to this as a means to an end to this conflict, it's going to hurt Ukraine too, because money will not be put in by the United States if it's Ukraine that's walking away from the deal. If it's Russia, we don't know. But if Ukraine's walking away from the deal, money will be withdrawn. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on the European Union and other NATO allies to see exactly how this is going to be navigated with the absence of the United States participation. And it's going to be, Trump said when he was leaving the White House today that he was going to possibly meet with Zelensky at Pope Francis's funeral. But we don't know if there's any truth to that at all.
And what's amazing to me is, so we've had 3.5, 4 years of war in Ukraine, and how it's going to land up is the exact map that was before this terrible war with thousands of people dying. They're going to cede Crimea if Trump and Putin get their way, and it won't change the map whatsoever. There'll be all these deaths for nothing. With Russia comes in, and now they have to leave. They're gonna leave with what they had before they started this latest incursion. It just it just boggles the mind and makes you very sad that this happened.
Let's move to something happening in America, and it kind of speaks to what's happening with the Democratic Party, and that is the retirement announcement from Senator Dick Durbin.
Yeah.
Making way for the younger crowd, it looks like. Are we changing the Democratic Party so that we have new ideas, fresh vision? Is that the way of the future? Is that what's going to shake things up and what's going to get the Democrats a little bit more into play here?
Well, let me just say I hope so. And I hope he takes Schumer with him. There needs to be new leadership. It needs to be, there's lots of really good people who are moderates, not, I'm not talking about AOC running the Democratic Party, although she needs to be a strong voice in the Democratic Party. But there are others who are ready to go and who are younger, not even, they're not in their 20s. They're still 50s and 60s years old. They're just not 80, and it's time for this to happen. It's time for a new president too, who's a lot younger, but we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, and I think already you're seeing the posturing. Cory Booker endorsed Brian Schatz, a senator from Hawaii, to be the next whip. I think if you're not really immersed in the business of the Senate and Congress, and you don't keep an eagle eye on it all the time, you don't realize how important the whip is in the structure of the Senate and Senate leadership, both in the minority and majority. It's basically they're the vote counters, and they can tell you what is and isn't plausible, and they can also work to tell the leadership and other members of the rank and file who needs to be influenced, who needs to be, what horses need to be traded to get a vote. So it is important. It's a very important role, even if it's not the sexiest outwardly. And I think Durbin is doing what a lot of politicians should do and say, I'm of a certain age. We need to move on. I need to pass the baton. And I'm also thinking that if Dick Durbin was a Democrat from a purple state, he might run again because the power of incumbency is so strong, but we didn't see that work with Bob Casey this time, so it wouldn't have been certain anyway. I think he's tired and wants to move on, and I think giving it to Brian Schatz is, if that's who ends up getting it, there'll be a race for it. Again, these people are not going to be, the new leadership isn't going to be there until after the 2026 election, so Dick Durbin's still there, but I think this is a good sign that Democrats are doing what they need to do to change the face of their party.
The other person that they're looking at is Chris Murphy, too, from Connecticut, who's a pretty strong candidate, although, as Michael says, he may have higher ambitions to be president.
He does, and he might want to be Senate leader. If Schumer steps down, he could run for that. And Schatz and Murphy are very, very close friends. They're not two people that I would see running against one another. So I think that all of this is done with a little bit of a wink and a nod. They have a very close relationship, the two of them.
And what's interesting, Kim, is that we can sit here and talk about this for 20 minutes, but the viewers and the listeners out there, they don't know who any of these people are.
I think they do. This is a crowd who knows. We know our politicians.
This crowd, but do they know who Chris Murphy is? Do they know who Schatz is from Hawaii?
Well, this crowd, the people in this on the Mark Thompson show know who all these people are. But I would argue, Jim, that most people don't know who Dick Durbin is, and he's been the majority whip for a very long time, since the early 2000s. So
the general public doesn't really care about this inside baseball stuff that much.
I don't know, because inside baseball seems to be getting a little more interesting in this whole David Hogg thing, where he's this 25-year-old guy who's involved in Democratic politics, and his idea is to give a challenge to these people that have held these seats forever. Maybe Dick Durbin saw the writing on the wall, right? When it comes to trying to pry these people that are in these safe districts and they have been here forever, but they're really not shaking up the party. They're really not infusing it with fresh ideas. And he thinks that in order to remake the Democratic Party, which lost last time, that we need to shake things up and get this done. Other people think, hey, save your money and spend it on defeating Republicans, not defeating Democrats. So what are your thoughts on this?
The machine in Illinois, I mean, having worked in Chicago for 3 decades or 2 decades.
And gotten a free hat along the line.
Gotten a free hat along the line wearing the Cubs hat. The Democratic Party machine in Illinois, in Chicago, if Dick Durbin wanted to stay, he would have stayed, because he is part of that machine politics there. So I don't think there would have been a revolution that really would have shaken up the Democratic Party in Illinois. Now, other places, as you point out, Kim, that may be true, where progressives are gaining some power, but Illinois politics is pretty stable and pretty down the middle, and there isn't a Republican who gets elected there.
Like San Francisco, there's no way Nancy Pelosi doesn't get elected if she runs again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, except she's running against somebody this time who the party is taking pretty seriously. But I agree with you. I think that those things do change. I mean, people have lost races that you don't think they can run. And not just Joe Crowley in New York, who was part of House leadership and lost to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but Tom Daschle lost when he was the majority leader of the Senate, and you know,
What about the guy from Virginia? What was his name?
Eric Cantor.
Eric
Cantor lost to Dave Bratt, and then George Nethercutt in Washington beat the Speaker of the House. And why am I not thinking of the Speaker of the House? But he did beat him. Who's the Speaker of the House from Washington? Jim?
Don't know.
Why am I forgetting? Come on, see, you said nobody else knows, so these are the things you're supposed to know.
I know.
But these things do happen, and I think that it's a serious a way of looking at it. And also J.B. Pritzker, who's the governor of Illinois, is also looked at as a possible presidential candidate. Yeah. And I think that's another important thing to look at. So again, Illinois is Illinois. Tom Foley.
Okay. Let's move on to our friend Pete Hegseth.
I didn't know there would be a test, by the way, today.
There's a test.
I should have asked you to prepare. But Tom Foley was Speaker of the House and lost a House race. I mean, come on, this stuff can happen. But let's cede to Kim now.
Yeah, Mr. Hegseth, he not only was using Signal on his cell phone, but apparently now there's a story that he asked for it to be this program, which is a non-secure texting platform, although more secure than the text program most of us use on our phones, is not worthy of secure communications from the Pentagon. But he asked for it to be put onto his computer at the Pentagon, which was connected to something called a dirty line, which is just a regular line out into the world to the internet. It's not secure. It doesn't have to be, it hasn't been sanitized by Pentagon security folks. So here he's got Signal put onto the PC on his desk at the Pentagon, and who knows what he's using it for. Meanwhile, at the same time, he's so upset about leaks and information getting out that he freaked out at the Pentagon, and he's shouting that he's going to polygraph top military officials to find out, where all the leaks are coming from. And it looks like that Pete Hegseth is imploding. We had a report this week from NPR that the Trump administration, while not admitting it publicly, is shopping around for a replacement for him already. Are Pete Hegseth's days as the top Pentagon leader numbered? Fellas,
well,
whichever one.
The easy answer is yes, because they're always, every coach is hired to be fired. But I think that his days have fewer numbers because of all of this, and because one thing that Trump takes seriously on the surface, not in an in-depth kind of way, are the opinions of generals. And if he starts to lose the military higher-ups, Hegseth starts to lose those military higher-ups, Trump will give in to that. And I think sometimes with Donald Trump, he feels he's done his job enough by nominating someone or giving them the chance, and that if he doesn't stick with them later on because of some kind of trouble they've gotten in, he feels like he's done his part. And I think that may be the case with Pete Hegseth. So I would not be surprised to see him go. I don't think it's going to be for this reason, but I think it's going to be for the enduring attention that he will get for something else, and that will be then cumulative to this and make it so that it's really impossible for him to stay because he loses the faith of the top generals.
I think the only reason why he hasn't been dumped yet is that Trump is haunted by his first term when he when there was a rapid turnover of all of his cabinet members, and that was embarrassing to him because people kept saying, "Well, you picked the best people, I thought, and then you're letting them go." So this time even though the defense secretary would have been gone in the past, he's holding on to him and not wanting to make any of those big moves. He's got enough trouble with tariffs. He doesn't need to do this. He's backtracking on everything that he's done practically, and another backtrack on who the defense secretary is not going to look good.
Here you've got a guy who, as we knew during the confirmation process, it came out that he was in charge of a couple of nonprofits, and even they had to get rid of him because he was horrible at running these agencies. It feels like we were warned. We had the information we needed about this guy. And is anyone really surprised that it has worked out poorly?
Well, it's not that we were warned. We knew this without warning. We knew that this is not the job for someone who's a talking head on television who had, a minuscule amount of experience. This is the Secretary of Defense. This is the person running the Pentagon. It's the biggest office building in the world, but it's also the biggest, one of the biggest jobs within an administration. I think now the biggest, because the State Department has been pared down so much. So I think it's the Republican senators who were warned, and the Republican senators who could have confirmed him, who didn't have to confirm him, because if the thing that you have to remember with confirming somebody like Hegseth, you're going to get someone else you like who's going to be better than Pete Hegseth. If Hegseth doesn't get confirmed, the president will nominate somebody else who you like, who maybe others don't, but will be better at the job, and presumably, and that's what's so confounding about a lot of these Republicans who really, off the record, would not have wanted Pete Hegseth to be the Secretary of Defense, yet they went along and voted for him.
We're kind of lucky that the deep state is running the Pentagon right now.
Well, that's true. Yeah, as we've been since Biden stole the election, Jim.
But Hegseth is not running. I mean, he's a figurehead. He's a talking head. He installed the makeup room at the Pentagon, so he looks good on television. That's pretty much why President Trump picked him. He's doing that part. He's the face of the Pentagon. He's kind of screwed things up, but the people really running the Pentagon and making sure that these airstrikes and everything else go smoothly are the deep state people who have been there for a while, who are generals, who are non-political. And fortunately, we still have those type of folks in place.
Well, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence when you see what a bumbling stooge he is on the outside. You wonder what kind of scandals are going on the inside that we haven't heard about yet. And I
think you'll hear about him, Kim, if they are.
And that's what I was saying earlier. There's going to be something else that just adds on to this in a cumulative way, and that's what I think is going to happen with him.
I mean, he has invited leaks at this point. He's invited people to, because he's weak and on the edge of being fired, people who want him gone are going to leak something that's going to push him over the edge.
Let's move to immigration. It turns out, speaking of bumbling stooges, agents that went to arrest this activist at Columbia, Mahmoud Khalil, they didn't have a warrant for his arrest. They didn't have the proper documentation that usually one would have if they're going to arrest someone. They are calling it a warrantless arrest of this Columbia University student. They say agents were afraid that he would flee because he said that he was going to leave the scene. And so regardless of whether they had an arrest warrant or not, they just took this guy into custody.
Well, here's what I have to say about that is that the government is out of control, and some of it seems funny. They're stooges and they mess things up. But what's going on in this country is actually quite scary. Today, federal agents, FBI agents, or actually it was yesterday, we found out about it today, arrested a judge in Wisconsin and put her into custody because she would not tell them where an immigrant appearing before her was, and he escaped, or at least he ran down the street, and then the FBI agents or marshals actually caught up with him down the street.
Tell me you don't watch the entire Mark Thompson show without telling me you don't watch the entire Mark Thompson show.
Oh, did you already do this?
Yeah, but that's okay. Carry on, because we didn't hear your opinion.
It's very, very appropriate. Yeah. I'm just giving you grief.
I mean, I just think that it's an example of why we should be legitimately afraid that these are genuine steps toward dictatorship. And we may be there already. He is already doing things through an executive order that he has no right to do. And the courts are slapping him down time after time. But what's his reaction going to be to that? Is he going to follow what the courts are saying? Or is there going to be a true constitutional crisis, which I would say we're already in?
Yeah, thus far he is not following what the courts are saying, and he and his administration are trying to find ways not to. And just to reiterate what we did talk about earlier, it's the part of what happened in Milwaukee is that you have federal agents going into a local jurisdiction to arrest a judge who has the autonomy to do her job, but not the autonomy that was given to her by that position to be a judge and to adjudicate. And if they don't like what she's doing, that's one thing, right? They can go in there, they can try and put another case before it, they can challenge it, they can have it go to an upper court, they can look at her. Or they could appeal it, right? Or if they think that she really was, there was something egregious about what she did, they could call for some kind of a judicial review and find that out. But this was such overreach and such overstepping that if there aren't consequences, it will get worse. I reminded viewers, Jim, earlier that we're 3 months into this show. Just a little over 3 months, and there are a lot of 3-month blocks to go, and that's frightening. And hopefully the train gets a little tired. I want to point out 2 donations that were given today. Vilma Devlin, $4.99. Thanks so much. Trump wants to raise fear in every facet of our society. I think that's what Vilma was probably referencing during the conversation about Judge Dugan in Milwaukee. And then Noe Marie Clarity giving a donation of $2, saying we know them all. I'm guessing that is a response to Jim saying that nobody knows who Brian Schatz and Chris Murphy are. But then, to his credit, Jim came out and said, I don't know much about Brian Schatz.
Well, yeah. Jim also referenced that Trump is getting slapped down by courts. And it seems like maybe there's a response to that. Today, we understand the federal government is reversing course when it comes to their plan to terminate the legal status of international students that are here in the United States to study, because so many court challenges have been filed against the Trump administration because of this. So now they're saying, okay, maybe we'll let the international students stay after all.
Yeah, I mean, they're pulling back on all kinds of things. The other thing they pulled back on today was the student loan business. They were calling back student loans, and now they say we're not going to do that. We're going to let that happen. So, I don't know if it's just that they shoot first and ask questions later is what's going on. Is that they're not really studying what they want to do, and then they find out once they do it that either it doesn't work or the courts are going to slap them down. It really is getting embarrassing that they are trying all these autocratic moves and are getting slapped down. They're not researching it. It's a combination of ineptitude and authoritarianism that is not working.
Let me throw another log on the fire here. 2 federal judges in 2 different states are blocking Trump's efforts to ban this whole DEI thing from K-12 education. They're saying you cannot withhold money from school districts simply because of DEI policies. It's happened in New Hampshire now, after rulings in a different state, that you cannot use federal funding to end DEI initiatives within public schools. You would think that Trump has enough lawyers that he would have seen this coming as well.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, Michael.
No, I was saying that you would think. I think this goes to what Jim was saying earlier about, shoot first and ask questions later. They created this chaos that first of all, it's impossible to sustain the chaos. And I think you're starting to see it wane a little bit. And maybe it's because the president's being called onto the national or international stage a little bit. And so he is doing his own chaos and his own, obviously, lying over China and Russia right now. But I think that when you put all this chaos out there and you have to start answering for it. And the answers have been coming from the courts. And those, when people see something as unconstitutional, or you arrest somebody without a warrant, or you go into a courtroom and arrest a judge for her demeanor and behavior around a certain case on the same day that you're saying, well, we're going to also pull back from arresting students that are overstaying their visas or not, right? Students who are here internationally, we're going to stop any kind of deportation of them just because they're international students. I think that the courts are starting to do their job. And what Jim brought up earlier, which is so important, is what happens now? If you don't abide by this, then you are creating a constitutional crisis. What you're seeing in some of these cases is the administration saying, "Yeah, I guess we didn't win that one. We can't do that. We can't do this on student loans. We can't do this on foreign students. So we'll try other things, see what sticks. And when they don't stick, we'll say we can't do it, and we'll move on to the next thing."
There's a man in Florida. He's the top Democrat in the Florida State Senate. His name is Jason Pizzo, Pizzo. And Jason says the Democratic Party is dead. It's dead. And so Jason Pizzo has now decided to change his party affiliation to become and register as an independent, because he says that we have an issue. He said we are players, or perhaps props, in the mess that is bottom partisanship. He said, "I think stripping myself of the title of the party designation allows me to run free and clear, clean and transparent, and help many, many more people." What do you think of that?
Well,
okay.
I don't think the Democratic Party is dead. We all said.
But I think he was saying, I think in fairness to Pizzo, is that he was saying in Florida, he was talking about the Democratic Party in Florida being dead.
It's maybe on his last breaths in Florida, but in general, we can't overreact because of the last election. Let's wait till the midterms. Let's see what happens there. That's going to be very important. Nobody's going to win. Democrats not going to win in Florida. I don't think an independent's going to win in Florida. It's going to be a Republican. I just don't think we need to panic. We need to organize, and the Democratic Party needs to organize, get ahead. Some people are beginning to emerge. Cory Booker is emerging as a leading spokesperson for the Democratic Party. And another wing, Gavin Newsom is. AOC, Bernie Sanders. There's some strong people. Pritzker in the Midwest as a moderate. Those folks, and Shapiro in Pennsylvania. That's a pretty strong, if you had a primary right now and you had a bunch of these guys lined up for a debate, that's a pretty strong list of people. So that doesn't even, Murphy is not in, and Murphy's in there. So, especially with Trump's approval ratings just falling like crazy, way down in the 40s, there's no reason for the Democratic Party just to fade away and go away. It just needs to get behind some people, and they are.
Yesterday,
I'm a little bit more of a skeptic about the strong bench. I think one person emerges in recent history. I don't think Barack Obama was on a strong bench in 2008. He was a 2-year senator who had come from being in the Florida legislature. So but I do think that having a strong party is important. I do think that a lot of the names that Jim just mentioned prove that the Democratic Party nationally is inches away from, being a national party and taking control of some of government anyway. And so I when you look at what Pizzo did, first of all, Pizzo in Florida is talking about the party specifically, as I said, but he also wants to be governor. And the Democratic brand in Florida is not at its best right now. And if he wants to run with no party affiliation for governor of Florida, that could be a better path for him, although it never really works out for third-party candidates unless the Republicans get behind him, even with no party affiliation.
Hmm. There's something else going on when it comes to the Democratic Party, and this is that Trump is now launching a Department of Justice investigation into Act Blue, which is the vehicle for fundraising for Democrats. And he is now saying he wants the DOJ to investigate Act Blue. It's being called the latest attack by Republicans and Trump and targeting his political opponents. And he's not backing down on this one. The Act Blue, they send me emails all the time. They're trying to fundraise. And so I think if Act Blue goes away, the Democrats could be in some trouble here.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go away.
This has been going on for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go away. The posturing for this has gone on for a little while. And the fact that they're doing it now, I think might help Act Blue, you know.
They're saying that there's illegal straw donations and dummy accounts and contributions from foreigners. And so that's why they're upset. Maybe it's that Act Blue is a little too successful, their fundraising efforts are too successful, and that's why they're being targeted. Jim Avila?
Yeah, I think
right. And I believe
it's actually going to help their fundraising. Okay, they're going to send out an email.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
And say we're under attack from Trump. Please donate, and they're going to get a lot of money. Well, you can see it right there. They're getting lots of money. So I think that's going to backfire. Unless and the problem is though a threat from Trump may become reality. This is not. He's not. He is not bound by any either democratic norms with a small d or any laws, and now with the Supreme Court giving him immunity for anything he acts as a president on, he can say that he's protecting the election, and close them down, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it. So, I laugh at what he's doing right now, but I fear what he's going to do in the future.
Yep. Last thing I wanted to ask you guys about before we wrap up this week in politics with Michael Shure and Jim Avila is everything that happened this week with Elon Musk. The announcement that profits or earnings at Tesla have dropped 71%. And then Musk saying, maybe I'll just go to 1 or 2 days a week with the whole Doge thing and really refocus my efforts on Tesla. And now we see that more than 50 House Democrats are demanding answers after a whistleblower report came out on Doge as well. Elon Musk not having a good week, you guys.
Yeah, couldn't happen.
No, and he doesn't appear as someone who right. He isn't someone you generally think of as having a bad week because he seems sort of unflappable about bad weeks. But this is and this, to me, I don't know that Doge is sustainable without his, front man status. I don't know who, unless Hegseth gets Doge when he leaves the Defense Department.
Right. And then he needs to be there to whisper into Trump's ear like he's doing there in that picture, because, that's the only reason why it's going on. He has reduced the amount of money that he said he's going to save from $1 trillion down to $1 billion or so. It's been, when you look at it objectively, it's been pretty much a failure what Doge has done. Could Trump have gone in and with a scalpel taken out waste and abuse in the agencies? Yeah, he could have, but he didn't do it that way. And they landed up making moves that cost them both in the public's eye because they were embarrassing, such as closing down the guys who were in charge of the nuclear codes. That was kind of an embarrassment. And then the courts ordering him to hire everybody back that he fired. The closing of USAID is one of the most important things that he has done, and one of the most detrimental things that Trump has done. That was our propaganda around the world, where it was to combat Russia and China, and now we don't have that goodwill. And in Africa, the growing place, the place that is going to be that has all the going to have all the power in the future, and we're losing influence there because we have cut off aid in midstream, where these people are now dying. Babies are dying because of
Imagine if Jimmy Carter were still alive and knew what was going on with cutting aid to Africa. It's extraordinary in the year that we remembered him. So
I was reading a story about more cuts at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. They have one of the world-renowned abilities to forecast weather. It's this collaboration that is one of the best in the world, and it could hurt our economy if it's cut. And they're cutting it. And this is something that farmers use, right? This is something that we base business on, these weather forecasting models that we're the best in the world at doing, and it's on the chopping block as well. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of thought process, that someone didn't sit down ahead of time and say, what happens if we do this? I try to teach my son this phrase: if I do this, what will happen? Because he has a little issue with impulse control, right? Not thinking things through. So if I do this, let's extrapolate. What are all the things that could go wrong? What dominoes could fall if I make this choice?
He's 36.
No one is doing that at the White House. If I cut this weather forecasting tool, could that have an effect on the economy, right? If I cut USAID, could people die? Who are they? How many? Can we afford to keep it? No one is asking the hard questions. They just act, and then we're in trouble. And then they have to.
Medical research is also very scary.
Firing people, having to rehire people. The decision-making process is flawed.
Yeah, I mean, I live in San Diego at UCSD. They're saying they're cutting 3/4 of their research because they're not getting the money for it. UCLA, same thing. So
I have a friend who works for the School of Health in North Carolina, and same thing. They're terrified because that's what they do, right? And not only that, they're arresting people who are working, or detaining people who are working towards cures for diseases.
Right.
They're so sidetracked by this, right? And meanwhile, the price of eggs stays where it is, and that was his big problem. Harry Magnan, thank you for giving $5 to the show and saying, I love the Jim and Michael show, right?
I love it too.
The Michael and Jim show, but thanks. We love it, Harry, and thank you for being so generous with the show.
Well, should we do our 48 seconds of sports before we move on
Jim?
into, let's do it. This is the 48 seconds of sports here on the Mark Thompson Show.
Which is sponsored today by Harry Magnan. And we bring Albert in for this too, because he's a huge sports fan. I think we'll hit very quickly. Shador Sanders, as of press, right now not drafted, but he had this fancy draft room all decked out, and he didn't get drafted. He didn't go to Green Bay, but he built some draft headquarters. What do you think? Is he going to go today, Jim, Albert? There he is. There's
I feel like he's got to go today. He was oddly in great spirits after the whole world was watching him fall.
There's his draft room with a hat. There's a hat with every team in the league, but he hasn't picked one up yet. And Pittsburgh still doesn't have a quarterback, so I guess I don't know if he's Mike Tomlin's cup of tea, but it's too bad when you build a draft room and you don't get drafted.
Did Aaron Rodgers get picked up yet by anybody?
No, not yet. He's toying with the Steelers a little bit, but I think the Steelers would like a better option, but I don't know enough to say that necessarily. But I think they'll figure it out. And the Niners selected defensive lineman Michael Williams, Mykel, like my mother intended to spell my name, but it didn't work out. And they seem to have made a good pick. People saying he's got unbelievable bursts of speed and power and tackling, which is one of the many things the 49ers need. And then Albert, can the Edmonton Oilers come back and beat the LA Kings?
Well, yeah, the Kings are unstoppable at home, so that's the one thing they got going for them. They're not playing; they're playing in Edmonton. So, but the first two games are very ugly.
Yeah, well, the first one wasn't as ugly as the second one, but yes, agreed.
Yeah, they kind of got it together there at the end.
Yeah.
There's good news in both San Francisco and Chicago this week when the Cubs swept the Dodgers in Wrigley Field. It was only a 2-game series, but it was nice to see back-to-back victories there.
Right. I like how it's a sweep, but it was 2 games. Right.
Yeah, and of course, Blake Snell, Niner fans are not enjoying that he's out this early, but it makes us feel less as bad when he leaves us to go to the Dodgers.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, thank you for enduring 48 seconds of sports. As always, Jim, thanks for being on, for put in for the extra time when you put in your timesheet, and I'll see you here next Friday with our old friend Mark, who will be back next week later in the week.
See you both. Take care.
All right.
Bye, Jim Avila. Have a great weekend. Thanks for coming by.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It is time to bring in our friend Michael Snyder. And I have to tell you that his report is sponsored by the Comic Book Boys. You can find them at cbbauctions.com, and he'll tell us more about that. But would you like to do the honors, Michael Shure?
Well, yes, he comes and goes on a rainbow. Here's Michael Snyder.
There it is.
Well, howdy, everybody. And Kim, just a quick note, the cbbauctions.com website is open for people's perusal, and the Comic Book Boys are very cool, but they're not really sponsoring the show this week. So let's just move on to add to you guys my love and affection for you all. And I miss Mark. Mark's in DC to visit with his mother. I'm happy he has the opportunity to spend precious time with his family. But seriously, as long as he's in Washington, the least he could do is to fix the U.S. government for us. I mean, come on, Mark.
Michael, I think that's what he's there for. He's using the visiting his mom thing as an excuse. Trump is going to Italy, and then he's going to take over and fix things. And before you get started, Michael, I want to ask you, as it's topical, maybe 30 seconds on Conclave. Is this a movie that people should go watch now because of what's about to happen next month in the Vatican?
I think it's a terrific film, and thank you for joining us in 2024 and bringing up Conclave. I appreciate that, Michael.
Well, we have a pope who just died. So I'm trying to keep it in the news and saying, should we go out and look at an older movie about the conclave itself, since we're about to live it?
I think that's a great idea. It's really a terrific film with Ralph Fiennes playing the cardinal, or the Vatican operative, who is in fact in charge in many ways with the vote for a new pope, and it's lovely performances by the likes of Stanley Tucci and John Lithgow and Isabella Rossellini, and it's kind of inside baseball, if baseball was Vatican City, and it's got great performances, and it shows the process as it develops over time, the voting process, the nominations, and what have you. It's a terrific film. So, yeah, I guess you're right. It is pretty timely to catch up to the Conclave film, and it is available for streaming. So,
All right. So there we go.
Check it out.
Now I cede to you.
It's been a busy week. In honor of Earth Day, I got dirty. I've been watching the Giants and Warriors games, and of course, I've been watching a slew of movies. And speaking of movies, let's kick things off with The Accountant 2. The Accountant 2 is a sequel to 2016's The Accountant, and it's kind of fun, disposable. It's sometimes amusing, and it's regularly violent, but it's hokum. And you've got two charismatic leads returning as the dysfunctional Wolf brothers, Ben Affleck is Christian Wolf, who's a brilliant problem-solving but autistic analyst with some martial arts skills, naturally. What accountant doesn't have martial arts skills? Anyway, he's worked for various unsavory types in the past, but always decides to do the right thing. John Bernthal, a.k.a. the Punisher in the Marvel Universe, again plays Christian's difficult brother, Braxton, who is a quirky but deadly assassin. And since the events of the first movie, which you could see or not see before watching The Accountant 2, Christian has developed a network of young assistants who are all on the spectrum and are based at the high-end autism treatment center from the first movie. Christian finances the center with laundered money taken from bad people. It's all very Robin Hood. And so the residents assist him, as does Braxton, when another Wolf ally, ex-Treasury Department investigator Ray King, played by J.K. Simmons, as was the case in the first Accountant movie, has uncovered a conspiracy and his own life is imperiled. Thus, Christian decides to help the internally promoted Treasury Department Deputy Director, Mary Beth Medina, played as she played her in the first film by Cynthia Addai Robinson, stop an army of deadly operatives led by a brutal hitwoman. They want to execute and cover up their nefarious plan, and they wouldn't mind executing Christian and Braxton in the process. No matter how tangled and vague things get here, director Gavin O'Connor keeps pedal to the metal action-wise, and Affleck and Bernthal are the usual magnetic presences on screen. As diverting as it can be at times, this Accountant really doesn't add up to much besides sound and fury and the occasional brotherly jape. So much for my forensics about The Accountant 2. It's in theaters. So let's see here. On Swift Horses is opening today, and I thought it was pretty good. It's part a lavishly realized post-Korean War potboiler rom-dram, romantic drama. And it's also part a woman's journey of self-discovery in a somewhat repressive era, the 50s. There's a love trapezoid, if you will, between Muriel, played in fine fashion by Daisy Edgar Jones, her husband Lee, kind of a stand-up guy who is working to build a home for them in Southern California. He's played by British actor Will Poulter. And the wayward brother of Lee, and that would be Julius, played by Jacob Elordi, one of those heartthrob types on the rise. And there's also his gay boyfriend, played by Diego Calva. Sasha Calle is on board as one of the neighbors that kind of catches the eye of young Muriel. And so there's that LGBTQ frisson here. It's all directed by Daniel Minahan. And, I thought it was pretty engaging. And again, it's so beautiful on the screen, and the actors are very committed to what they're doing. It does get a little soap opera operatic at times, but I thought it was pretty solid. It's a mature movie. It's thoughtful, and it also kind of delves into how difficult things were for people to express themselves back in the 50s, particularly women. So, I give it a tentative recommendation on Swift Horses, which is playing in select theaters this weekend.
And how often do you get to see a love trapezoid movie too?
I didn't know what else to call it. It's actually 5 people are involved. There's, the brother's lover. There's the Sasha Calle character, the neighbor woman. It gets kind of muddled, but I still thought it was pretty exciting on some level.
Never been anything like this.
We have another.
What's that?
What? I was going to say we have another big screen video game adaptation. Woo! Until Dawn is one of those video game adaptations, and it has some wonky internal logic. It's all kind of a Groundhog Day of death, as a bunch of 20-somethings are in search of one of their number's missing sister. She's been gone for about a year, and this girl is determined to find her sister, so she convinces her friends to go on a road trip, and they end up in I guess we'd call it a remote area. It's a remote valley where the girl vanished, and Sister Clover wants to find Melanie and convinces her friends to join her, but it's a bad idea. They come to a visitor center, which is clearly abandoned, but is it? Because there's all kinds of deadly hijinks going on. And how can I put this? The game is probably the template for this, but these kids, when they come to this visitor center and find themselves trapped there, start dying in creatively gory ways, but then they're resurrected, so they kind of die and die again. It's kind of like I said, Groundhog Day of death. The mythology of this, if you could call it that, is probably pieced together from elements of the game, and it was more than a little scattered, but I think genre fans will get a kick out of it. And, it's like a parade of the greatest slasher movie tropes coming at you. Bang, bang, bang. And that's why I think fans will enjoy it. It just kind of gets a little too much at one point. It's a bit long and let's say a little tedious at times. But you can't go too wrong with Peter Stormare as the heavy. He shows up here. And one of the girls in the group plays Stephanie, the prom queen ghost on Ghosts. It's nice to see her getting a movie role. It's from the director of Lights Out and the Shazam movies. The first one good, the second one not so good. And that director, David F. Sandberg, is pretty talented. But, this was, for me, a bargain matinee at best or something for streaming. I was not blown away by it. I will tell you that I had a particular pleasure in watching The Trouble with Jessica. And full disclosure, the co-writer of The Trouble with Jessica, a dark comedy of manners, which is something the British excel at doing, is my friend James Handel, along with the director, Matt Wynn. He fashioned a script about a dinner party where familiar people, friends, if you will, are sitting together politely, but secretly having qualms about each other or bearing resentments. And this kind of recalled elements of the recent and crafty espionage film Black Bag. And like Black Bag, it is graced with a highly capable and highly regarded cast. Husband and wife, Tom and Sarah, are played by, respectively, Alan Tudyk, who is actually an American, and the great British character actress Shirley Henderson. Their friends, such as they are, Richard and Beth, are played by Rufus Sewell and Olivia Williams. And there's a fifth person at the dinner, and she's kind of an uninvited guest. Richard and Beth have brought her along. She's the titular Jessica, and she's played by Indira Varma, who is all over the place lately in a variety of films. She even voices one of the characters on the DC Comics animated series Creature Commandos. And this quintet of actors are the attendees at the dinner. And Wild Child Jessica, who is an author on the rise and basically, crashing the party, does something quite unexpected that throws the entire evening into chaos. And it was... I really enjoy this kind of film. It's very, very witty. It's pretty talky, but it has a lot of unexpected twists and turns. And again, with these five actors at work, it couldn't be anything less than compelling. I totally enjoyed The Trouble with Jessica. It may not be, your favorite main course, but I kind of enjoyed dining with these people. It is in select theaters starting today. Let's move on again. Oh, I got to say, this is a film that is designed for family viewing, but it is occasionally morbid, yet ultimately inspiring. It's called The Legend of Ochi, and it has some of the most astonishing and seamless creature work, animatronic and digitally animated, that I have ever seen. It is set on the island of Carpathia, and it's modern times, but things are kind of traditional on the island, and the people who live there have lived in an uneasy harmony. And we won't call it harmony. It's kind of a truce between the humans and the Ochi, which are kind of strange animals that live on the island and basically dominate the wastelands and the forests.
Look at that. It looks like a furry Yoda with a blue face. He's so cute.
Well, yeah, they're kind of like proto-gremlins. They're kind of like they're far more expressive than those Cupid dolls from the Gremlins movies. But it's really amazing tech work. And the movie is helped along by a nice performance from this kid who decides to rescue one of these Ochi who is separated from its mother, and she's played by Helena Zengel, and a pretty good young actress. But it's helped even more by the presence of Willem Dafoe as a local who is determined to wipe out the Ochi. His estranged wife, Dasha, played by the great Emily Watson, and as one of the kids in Maxim's anti-Ochi army. He's been training these kids to wipe them out. Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things and a variety of other projects. The movie is directed and written by Isaiah Saxon, and it is so lovely to look at. And it's, the characters of the creature, the central creatures in this thing, so beautifully brought to life. It's predictable story-wise, but it is quite beautiful to look at. I think for family viewing, pretty good, but it does get, a little upsetting at times. Those creatures bite, let's put it that way. I thought The Legend of Ochi was decent family fare, and certainly a cut above a lot of the stuff that's churned out in Hollywood. I wish I could be more excited about Mob Cops. This is a dramatization of a true crime story. Clearly, it was a passion project for the director and one of the stars, Danny A. Beckhazer. And, but it's a little short on passion. It is all about two incredibly corrupt cops in the NYPD and how they dealt with the mob and how they were kind of an extension of a local gang lord. And those two cops are played by David Arquette and Jeremy Luke. And in fact, Kevin Connolly from Entourage plays the current boss in that precinct. So you're dealing with a few known entities in these significant roles, but it just seemed a little flat to me. I kind of wanted to be more excited than I was. And it was interesting to see the story. And there are so many based on a true story movies made these days. This had to be better than it was to kind of be a cut above what we've already seen elsewhere. I was interested in the case more than I was in the movie. Let's put it that way. And again, Arquette and Jeremy Luke are very talented, and it's good to see them working, but this kind of disappointed me. It is in select theaters, and it's also available for streaming starting today. I want to wrap up with a new movie that just debuted on Netflix. And Kim, I don't think this is your cup of meat or your cup of blood. It is incredibly violent. It's John Wickian in its lunacy. It's called Havoc. And it comes from the filmmaker who directed the mega intense tie-set police action movies, The Raid and The Raid 2. And he also did the British period drama Apostle. Havoc, though, is set in modern times in an unnamed American city that's also rife with corruption. And it features the great Tom Hardy as a detective who's trying to balance a nearly destroyed family life. He has alienated his wife. He can't see his daughter. And it's Christmas, so that's going on. And he's also kind of an outlier in the local police department, some of whom are in the pocket of the local mob. So there's a drug deal that falls apart. A policeman is hospitalized, and our hero Walker is sucked into the situation. Forrest Whitaker plays the local mayor, who's clearly pretty corrupt himself. There is a Asian crime syndicate in the middle of this. Those guys are fighting the cops, and there's all these betrayals. And mostly it's one incredibly artfully directed violent sequence of martial arts and gunplay after another. And so, for that, it was my, recommendation to people who like that kind of movie. Gareth Evans, who directed it and wrote it, has great skill when it comes to these action sequences. And since that's what this movie is for the most part, I can give it a conditional recommendation. Again, Forrest Whitaker, Tom Hardy. One of the cops is played by Timothy Oliphant. This is pretty decent cast wise. Luis Guzman has a supporting role as a.
I like Luis Guzman.
He's always good. It's a small role, but he's pretty good too in the part that he's playing here. And I don't want to get into many details about it, and they're not necessary. It's one bang up action scene after another. It's on Netflix. Again, I'd only recommend Havoc to people who like movies like The Raid or the John Wick films, but I enjoyed watching it.
All right, so what's that?
I was going to say the possibility exists and is likely that I don't understand the movie business, but it seems like a movie like this has probably a big budget with all the explosions and the blasts and the action scenes. So how is it that they put it right on Netflix?
Well, Netflix is worth billions of dollars, Kim, number one. Number two, this guy is a proven action director who doesn't have a high profile. So studios that are willing to cough up that amount of money, and there's a lot of money on the screen in terms of car chases, explosions, what have you. And again, Tom Hardy is a star. He's no, second tier guy.
It just surprises me that it wouldn't go to the theater, that it would go right to Netflix. But that, hey.
No. You're right. It does seem in large part like the kind of movie you would see opening in movie theaters.
Right.
But I think the business model has changed considerably since the rise of the streamers. And they're throwing money at the Russo brothers, and they're throwing money at Zack Snyder, and they threw some money at Gareth Evans, and he's responded with this, one explosion after another, if you will.
Okay. Well, there you
go.
So
it's the Accountant 2. Go see The Accountant 1 if you haven't seen the first one. On Swift Horses.
You really don't need to see the first one. I
wouldn't. I wouldn't go to Guinea-Bissau without going to Guinea first. So I would see The Accountant 1 first. But as Michael says, you don't have to, which speaks well of a sequel that you don't have to see the first one. On Swift Horses, a love trapezoid until dawn based on a video game, which means they have one non-viewer in me. No offense. The Trouble with Jessica. Also sort of a trapezoid, 5 people around a dining room table. The Legend of Ochi, Mob Cops, which if we were just looking at a list of movies, that would be the one on this list that I would want to watch.
And it's probably one of the least of the films this week.
And that's what you said, Michael. So title good, movie not as great, and then Havoc straight to Netflix, a lot of money on the screen, as Michael Snyder says. So, Michael,
and it's nice. On your home screen. It's on your home screen, which is crazy. One quick note: Andor, which could be the very best Star Wars property since the original trilogy. It's smart. It's adult. It basically serves as a prequel to Rogue One, which is one of the coolest Star Wars, Skywalker saga projects. Is back for season 2 on Disney Plus. They're dropping 3 episodes a week, and they're all kind of one time period, and then they jump forward the following week with 3 more episodes. And again, it stars the wonderful actor Diego Luna as Cassian Andor, and Andor is sort of a rebel who's trying to oppose the Empire in the period following the first, rise of the Empire. It's kind of pre-Star Wars: A New Hope. And in addition to the very talented Diego Luna, the cast again includes Stellan Skarsgård as a spy master, Genevieve O'Reilly as a senator in the local Coruscant Senate, and Genevieve O'Reilly's quite good as Mon Mothma. And Forrest Whitaker has appeared in earlier episodes of this. I don't know if he's in the second season. It's brilliantly done, beautifully directed. Again, all the money's on screen, Kim, and you're wondering how do they afford to do this for TV, quote unquote.
I know. Well, I already got asked about this one. My son, my 11-year-old, wants to watch it together. So you said adult. Now I have to look into whether it's appropriate.
Well, if you are reluctant to watch him see people hit by ray gun fire, then I can understand you maybe don't want to do it. But it's really brilliant. It's one of the smartest things to come out of the Lucasfilm empire, and I think talk about empires, and I think it's really good.
Well, that is an empire too. Now, my uncle was in the movie business, and he would not believe, if he were alive, that they were releasing movies that didn't go into theaters. He would just be blown away by that. But that's what happens, as we talked about earlier. There are no newspapers either. But Michael Snyder, thank you for this glorious recap of what we should see and maybe not see, and for indulging my conclave question.
Wait. Here's the big question: how about those Giants, huh?
Look at we're adding seconds onto 48 seconds of sports. Yeah, but how about those Giants? And the New York Giants, by the way, drafting well yesterday. So it was a good Giants. And as Jim Avila mentioned, the Cubs beating the Dodgers twice is always good for the Giants. So lots of happy sports to report.
That's for sure. I guess we'll see everybody next week. Always a pleasure, guys.
Bye, Michael Snyder. He comes again.
He goes. Now he goes on a rainbow. Yeah, now he goes on a rainbow.
Bye.
Bye. So everybody, thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Thanks for all week without Mark. I wasn't here all week, but I know the fort was held down. Michael, so Calvin Pickard is starting for the Oilers tonight. If they get knocked out in the first round, the Oilers need a bona fide number one starter if they want to keep McDavid. That's Depressed Canadian, $20 to the show. Thank you so much. You couldn't be more right. I'm surprised they didn't try and do it earlier. It's a real hockey curiosity about that. Thank you to Albert. Thank you to Kim, to Jim Avila, to Michael Snyder, to Aaron Burnett. And everyone have a really great weekend. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
On Monday, Michael Snyder returns. Gary Dietrich will talk politics as well. And make sure to join me for the after party. That's next, and the link's in the chat. Bye, Michael Shure.
Bye-bye.
For the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.